Hey, welcome into the Bobby Carpenter Show, and happy to be with you here on this lovely Monday. Coming off a big Father's Day weekend, and Schlegs, we really didn't touch on it too much on Friday. If you're a football family, I went back and saw my parents for a little bit in between some of my kids' games. Had to grab my oldest and youngest boys were with my parents and got a chance to say Happy Father's Day to my dad in the midst of like a full lacrosse tournament weekend. And got to share with them a little bit of the John Randall It's a Football Life, which is tremendous. I would recommend anybody to watch it. It's out there, just seeing his humble beginnings, Schlegs, of growing up in a 20 by 20 foot shack that basically looks like his house out of Forrest Gump. No running water inside. And this is a guy that's probably in his mid 50s. And he played just before we did. So this isn't like it's 100 years ago. But got a chance to see my dad. And we always had football was always such a big part of our lives, which I know it was for you guys. Any Father's Day? Well, number one, how was your Father's Day experience? And then number two, any good father-son stories that you'd like to share coming off of that weekend?
Father's Day in Jacksonville, got the second of 3 pods, really playing some serious Tetris work. Anybody that's out there moving in pods, one, I recommend it. I like it. But everybody, there's wardrobe boxes. And I'm like, dude, you don't need no wardrobe boxes. Throw those things in freaking trash bags. Why? Because there's those crevices.
Smoosh them
there
up
at
there.
the top. And you just,
Smoosh
and the patio furniture, like stuff that can be disassembled. Granted, it takes a little bit of time, but you got a small area. And I just disassembled everything, beds, outdoor furniture. I'm like, oh, this is going to fit because you don't think it's going to fit. But guess what? You can make it fit. You just got to disassemble it. Then you got to save it. You got to label all the boxes, all the baggies, where they all go. I was doing that all weekend. Father's Day.
That's the worst. The little tool bag parts.
You got to have them all, and you got to label them.
And then tape them.
Hey,
them to the object.
No, I actually have a whole box of just the screws and the bolts and where they all go. And so like that's what it is. Don't lose that box, But it was great. Went to church with the kids, went out to eat, watched the US Open, went to Floor and Decor, got to pick out some things. Steph's not here. She's in Texas. Yeah, just imagine me in Floor and Decor. I just listened to my daughter, and I'm like, oh, that looks good. That does not look good. Could that resell? Are we going to enjoy that? Is that easy to clean, or is it difficult?
You're there with all the kids on Father's Day, and your wife went to Texas to see.
Because Sam was in Texas because we went on the senior cruise. So Sam was in Texas.
Oh, so he didn't get to go cruising?
No, he didn't go cruising. This was about Hunter and Faith, right? And then. So he was in Texas spending time with the family and the cousins, and he would enjoy that way more. So it's like, so then Steph flew there, spent Father's Day with her dad, went and saw my dad with Sam, boom. And then they'll come back to Jayville, and then I'll come back to Ohio for one more stint. And then I have two flights remaining, one round trip, and I'm done. Big time. Father-son stories, that would be epic.
Let me ask you this. Do you think your dad had on his holy underwear that Steph first saw him in? Or is he graduated to like fully clothed hanging out the house?
No, he's fully clothed now, just got the Skechers where the slip-ons, fully dressed. Good Father's Day. I don't know if it necessarily happened on Father's Day, but it was funny. I was actually talking to somebody about, and you actually brought him up about training at the Armory. And I was just alluding to him why I like the way that we train groups and the way that we do it. Like we don't break them up into like junior high kids and high school kids or even professional kids or in college or pros. I like to see everybody work. And I think one of the best things that my dad did for me when I was really young was he always took me to the high school workouts that he ran. So right now in summer, my dad ran all the summer strength and conditioning program for the high school without getting paid. It was just what he did. And I was there with him, handing out the cards. I knew everything that was going on. And he also took me to Metroflex, where I was training in and amongst grown men and women. I think that's something that has been lost. We want to silo and segment everybody into the age-appropriate group. And I think that's absolutely false because, as you know, Bob, growing up, watching your dad, being around the seniors, even when you were really little, like you saw how they worked And that was what you emulated and want to be like. And then as you grew up, like you had confidence that you could have dialogue and converse with them while also understanding that you have to live within 10 and within the program and be a good teammate. Like you saw all those
Yeah.
things, kind of sitting back, like I just appreciated all the things that he put me in and around as I grew up.
Absolutely. And it's interesting. I'm glad you brought that up because I was talking to my kids about that. I'm like, they don't really have any friends. Like they know people, but they don't really hang out with people outside of their grade level all that often, which to me is crazy. Cause like when I was growing up at swim meets and like I was the younger kid at swim practice, I was always trying to like be part of the older kids, play the card games with them, learn the games with them, get in their lane and like make sure I could hold my own. And then it's like same thing when you were like lifting. And I had friends that would be a grade up or a grade below. And I thought that was really important. And kind of like you said, that dynamic. Or like when I was a freshman lifting with the seniors, like you see how they lift, you see how they work. And then also those are like aspirational goals for you. Like, yeah, I'm watching somebody do this and they can do it. So why can't I? And how do I get to that point? But I feel like it's something that's kind of lost. And like, no, who hangs out with people outside of their grade? That's weird. I'm like, weird. Like one of my best friends was a year older. Another one of my best friends was a year younger. And a lot of friends that were like in my grade, but it was just kind of who was around and who played the sports you did or who, you know, lifted or did whatever. Like you're just finding people to hang out with. And I agree with you in that vein because I think it's very important. And I know you were probably always around it growing up. And I don't, I'm trying to figure out, Schlegs, if I've like cheated my kids by not coaching as much. I try to get them over to Ohio State and make sure that they're around and see how guys work and see those things. But my dad was always coaching like your dad was. And so I was always kind of at practice, watching things, seeing guys work, being around it. And I hope that my kids that hasn't been lost. So I brought him around my dad a lot when he was still coaching at high school. And then I try to get him over to Ohio State, try to get him over there with you just so they can see how people work and that they're familiar with all of these different things and see what intensity looks like. And so they can handle all that stuff. And they're excited to kind of get to that level that they can do it. And coming off of Father's Day, that was maybe one of the great gifts that my dad ever gave me was, that he decided not to be a college coach or not to coach in the NFL and coach high school where I could be around a lot and be a water boy and, help him out, do whatever, be around the game. And then my brothers could too. And you just have such an in-depth understanding. And to me, I think it almost builds your love for it because you get to share that with your family, you get to share it with your dad. And that's, people always ask, like, is there any non-sports stories with your dad? And like, we would like fish sometimes and do stuff like that. And, he took me hunting. And I remember the first time I shot a shotgun and, he laughed. He's like, put it in there snug like you think it is and how bad it freaking hurts your shoulder and knocked me to my butt. I think he let me fall down to tell you the truth. When he's like, stagger your feet, stagger your stance, bend your knees, same things you tell people in sports. And, I remember those things, but so much of it was always just the to and from practice, the to and from the game, the around all of that, because it was such an integral part of our life. And people think like I've said, well, isn't that kind of sad? I'm like, no, because it was something that we all loved and we all enjoyed together. So what does it matter what you're doing? He got to take his occupation and then share that with his kids and his love for what he did. And then we in turn probably kind of loved it the same.
That's probably the hardest thing we have, Bob, growing up the way that we did is that we've been, man, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't want it's not even
Groomed,
passionate. It's not even passion.
conditioned.
It's not even passion, man. I always say this, like I struggle with my wife in this regard of like, oh, it's just a job. Like I've never held a job. I've always done something that I've been so passionate about that it doesn't feel like an occupation. Right. One, my identity is always in Jesus, but two, it's like I just love serving people and being around high performing people or people that want that. And I would say this too, like one of the greatest lessons I learned from my dad was he could speak to anybody of any level, regardless of race, regardless of circumstances or economic background or whatever. And I just always appreciated that about him, but it was because he always had their best interest. And then, yes, that common ground was always athletics, but it went into much more than that because I think athletics, we're all trying to achieve this aspirational goal of reaching our genetic potential and the goals that we have and whatever endeavor it is that we're doing, whatever sport that is. But there's so many different life lessons that come about that. And it was funny. I was talking with Ryan, and the team is reading a book, Chop Wood, Carry Water. And I hit him up and was like, hey, is RJ reading that book? Because RJ comes to the Armory. And he's like, yeah, I just gave it to him the other week. I'm like, awesome. Can't wait to talk to him about it. And again, those little those little passings of, we're working on acceleration and things that he's doing for camp and making sure that he can have a great junior season, et cetera, et cetera. But then you can get in the weeds of life with just a little nugget when you see that it presents itself that is warranted of that nugget, right? Or then even talking to my kids about that same book, and also, why do I have them do certain things as an entrepreneur? It was funny. We're moving. So we're going through pictures, and there was literally a picture of Sam standing on top of a table that was in my garage in 2015 when I first started The Difference, and I'm making them in my garage, and there's just Sam with like a power tool. And I'm just like, probably not the safest thing for a 3-year-old to have, but he had it nonetheless because he wanted to be out there helping. And I talked to them about all these different things and now where they are in college and what it is that they want to do. And hey, just so you guys know, everything that I've done has been very intentional. And hey, I want to help you now. So you have this background, but like now converse with me as to how I can help you achieve those goals. And it's not just sports related, because sports carry outside of just sports. It's bigger than that. That's why we all love it. It's why we all gather around it, because there's a lot of life lessons in it. And I think too many times, if you don't use that opportunity, that's why coaching and educating is so important, to seize those moments, to add value to them within the sports confine, but more about life. You're missing those opportunities.
Yeah, absolutely you are. It's a really great point, Schlegs. And that the teachable moments, you know what, that you inspired me. So I was talking to Quinn about it, and I've been kind of reading some of the experts. I leaf through the book. I'm going to get it. I'm going to get it for my kids. I'm going to make them read it. That's going to be some summer reading protocol for the Carpenter family. Chop wood, carry water, because each chapter is like 3 pages. It's a real quick read, folks. Yes. I would encourage all of you. And it talks about like breakthroughs, what success looks like, all of these different things. And it's like the perception of what people think it is versus how it actually is. And watching that John Randall video with my dad and sitting there, the football life, Schlegs. This dude grew up in a 20 by 20 shack. He bathed in a cow trough. They would heat the water on the stove with a pot. Goes on to be at one point the highest defensive paid player in NFL history. And it's remarkable, his journey of what he didn't have and how he got to ultimately be where he wanted to be. And like, those are the moments, those are the things you share of like what success looks like, how to get there, and those little nuggets. And like football was always the vehicle that helped, I think, have those conversations. And it was, go ahead.
You brought up a great, like, let's go back to John Randall. Like, the number one thing I remember about John Randall, 2 things: his face paint,
yep,
and the attitude and intensity of which he played the game of football.
Oh yeah.
And you brought up a thing of success, Bob. It's like, we all have different potential. We all have different things. I challenge people all the time, like, what is success to you? And I live an absolutely crazy life. My wife's like, we should write a book about your life because it is nuts. And she's been there for the entire ride. I mean, since she was 15 years old.
What's it be called? Lift weights and kill hogs. Pump iron, slaughter hogs. Will be
man. And you know what? Like success for me is it's just like doing what God created you to do. And mine is to serve people. That is my success, man. It is not a monetary value. I find the joy when, regardless of who it is, when I get to talk to Nate Smith the other day, like, you passed him over to me. We had a great conversation. I just love listening to what he does in his own business. When I found that out of him and his uncle own a manufacturing company for replacement parts for medical equipment, I was like, dude, what a great niche. Awesome. We're talking about his kids. We're talking about what they want. We're talking about the Armory, things like that. Like, I enjoy that. I had a guy who was like struggling with his weight and stuff like that. And I was like, dude, you need to go do this sleep study. Completely changed how I've gained muscle, and I don't snore anymore because I got this mouthpiece. And we're just like pouring. And then that conversation led to something completely different. Like, those are the moments that I actually truly enjoy. And that's success to me. When you get to serve and maximize people, like, that's my success. I hope that everybody finds whatever that is, because I tell you what, I don't work a day in my life. We do crazy things, Bob. Like, you are running around, you're teaching class, you're having a show on 97.1, you're doing this podcast, you're on Sirius XM, you're being a husband and father, like, you're doing recruiting stuff at Ohio State. Like, it is chaos all the time. But I don't know any other way. I don't.
Yeah. You love the
Nor do
chaos.
you probably.
No, you enjoy the chaos. The chaos makes it fun, and it's interesting where they said a lot of people that they said in World War II, like get out of wars, and people that are really good at anything, whether it was the top fighter pilots. And I started thinking it's kind of all elite people that I know. A lot of them have substance abuse problems when they cease to do what they've done for so long because they just need to be busy and they need to be doing something. And so if you're not doing something, you don't feel like you're achieving anything. And it's really a hard paradox to kind of wrap your mind around where I was the best at this because I did it all the time, every day, all encompassing. And then all of a sudden, well, I'm not doing that. And it's
Mm.
really, really hard to kind of figure that out. And I'm trying to think who I was talking to, a friend of mine that was retiring and from the military. And then I had another friend who was retiring, from playing sports as well and professionally. And I told him the hardest thing you're going to have is you're never going to find anything that you will love or care as much about that as you do right now. And so you're going to have to find a way
Mm.
to figure out and to fill that void of what that looks like and what that time is and find something that you love. And it'll be close. You can kind of get there. But the hardest thing is finding that thing and kind
Yeah.
of searching it out. For a long time, you always knew the thing, like you knew the goal of where you were trying to go to. Now it's like, I've got to find that location. I have to find the horizon of what my destination is going to be. And now I got to get there. And that'll be that. The first part of finding it is much harder than the dedication of ultimately getting to it. So it's tough, but it's good.
I tell you what, Bob, you're spot on. We read all the studies of guys in the NFL and substance abuse or loss of financially, and it's why I always challenge people. Like, first off, where is your identity? Who is your identity with? Right? Like, what do you like? Who makes you you? Like, yeah, that's the number one thing. And I think the second thing is finding those mat carriers, right? Those foxhole buddies. There's a difference between the 6 p.m. guys that you're going to call and the 3 a.m. guys.
Yeah.
Like the ones that you call up like, hey man, we got to lose a body. I'm not saying that we're trying to do that, okay? But I'm just saying, who are those mat carriers for you, especially during those times that you got to be able to vet it out, have hard conversations, hold you accountable. And I'm just like, that's not just a football thing. That's a life thing, And again, this is a sports show. We have fun, but these are real things, right? That we got to be able to walk alongside people and help them navigate this awesome journey that is life.
Yeah, you mean the people that show up, Schlegs, with duct tape, plastic, some garbage bags, and a razor blade, and will cut the carpet out, roll the body in it, throw it in some garbage bags, and go duct tape it together, and then sink it in the river. Whatever you got to do, man.
In the Scioto.
Whatever you got to do, it's all there and a lot of fun. Okay, so coming up next, we've got Thursday. Ross Bjork had a press conference, and I haven't got a chance to really talk to you about this. We had a lot of stuff going on Friday. About the house settlement, what that's going to look like, the NIL, the BSG, the Buckeye Sports Group, which they announced prior to that, talking how that's going to work in the NIL space and how that's going to all commingle. I was talking with my brother on Sunday who played at Marshall and coached at Louisville too, and just he's like, well, what about this? What about this? Like, those are all great questions, George. Like, those are questions that I asked. Those are questions that I don't know if anybody else has answers to yet. So we're going to talk about that a little bit as well. And then Schlegs, I'm going to give you some moving advice. I'm going to show you a little bit of something. We've got a nice clip here that we'll pull up there just at the beginning. But first, I want to tell you, parents and athletes, listen up. Protect what matters most with Export mouth guards, trusted by professional athletes, designed by NHL team dentists. Export mouth guards are scientifically tested to help absorb those high-impact hits, protecting both your teeth and your brain. Export mouth guards feature 3 layers of advanced protection, including a patented use of carbon fiber. They custom print that thing to your own unique smile, the 3D printed for max performance, better comfort, clear communication, and unbelievable protection. So you can focus on your game, not on your gear. Don't take chances with your safety. Go visit exportguards.com/Bobby today to save 15% on your order. Export, protect what matters most. More of the Bobby Carpenter Show coming up next. All right, welcome back into the Bobby Carpenter Show, Schlegs, and we've got a nice little nugget for you. You've talked a lot about moving. You actually helped me move one time, and my guy, Pat, he went to the archives and found something. This is a little father-son thing. My dad was trying to help him. He's getting a little older, can't probably help quite the way. But if you want to ever see how to move a wall piano, upstairs in like a colonial home with that nice narrow chute where it's 2 dudes only on there. How to get this thing up? Let's take a little peek here.
Okay.
How much more?
No, you need to stay back over there in case they would, in case it would fall and then would crush you.
McLean.
Almost there.
Encouragement. You need the encouragers, Spikes. The encouragers.
Look at that.
Look at Hey, listen, Pat, we're just real. Pat, there's in there. Your mom telling me it's going to crush McLean. I'm like, you got to give them the real experience of what could happen. Then we're to the top. Push that thing with that slide right around.
Oh, that thing ain't ever.
I mean, that was about Schleg's doing about 15 successive deadlifts and me doing about 15 like different sled pushes. As you would deadlift, I would push up. You would deadlift, I would push up, and then it went to its final resting home up there. And I mean, I've looked so much bigger back then. I don't know if I could do that anymore.
Dude, your upper back. I mean, you were a soldier, Bob.
Yeah, and
you were a soldier.
You were zero deadlifting it. Literally from your toes is where you had to pick up, not even from like mid shin. It was.
I think there was a handle. I don't know. It looked like there was
that handle on the side. Yeah, you may have got the handle on the one, but that was October 4th, 2015. Schlegs.
Dang, isn't that amazing?
Yeah, it's
almost 10 years ago, almost a decade ago. Is that thing still there?
We're not in that house anymore.
I know.
I moved. I told him, I told my wife that's staying in there. I'm not taking
Could you imagine?
Well, taking it down, I said, would be physically easier, but probably significantly more dangerous because you have to slow it down. If that thing picked up speed and ran you into the wall, it would kill you. Like it would.
Yeah, 100%. It was enormous. I like to think that's a good test right there. I've been watching these things on the YouTube machine of man makers where they grab like a dumbbell and they just do it's like almost like a clean high pull with like 100-pound dumbbells. And I was actually thinking about this the other day. I think I could do it probably with 150s. The thing would be like my grip. I might just go try that when I get back to the armory because I don't have any dumbbells in the house.
On the
I mean, I could grab those 150, but it's just, I mean, once I got it off the ground, like I could pull that 150. I got these things. I had one in the garage. It was a 200-pound sandbag ball thing, like Atlas stone. My kids are like, why do you have that? I'm like, why not? I mean, sometimes I just get in here. You guys aren't in here. I just pick up 200-pound things and like throw them over my shoulder just to make sure I can still do it in case when called upon, one of my mat carrier, my foxhole buddies needs me to show up and show out to move a 5,000-pound piano up a flight of stairs. I can still do it without injuring myself.
5,000. It was probably 3 to 4. It's probably 400 pounds to be able to do that. So there you go, Schlegs. That was 10 years ago, man. That was wild. Wild to think that. Wild to think, too, in 10 years, we've had all this NIL changing. And so Rossberg had his press conference. I was watching. He had an interview with Dom Taberry on Wall-to-Wall Sports on 10 TV. I encourage you to check it all out. It was good where he was answering a lot of the questions because you're getting this pot of money. Like, how's it going to be allocated? How much your player is going to get paid? Are you going to spend it all on one player? Is it going to be multiple? Like, how is this all going to work? And he did a good job of trying to outline the house settlement with the compensation of what that's going to look like from the university. And then also the NIL and the clearinghouse for the deals with Deloitte and how that's ultimately going to work as well with everything. But I'm curious to see, Schlegs, because they got into agreements with people, and I think they've kind of projected what that house number was going to look like, and then it would get passed. But you know, some of these teams, like it seems like they promised all these guys all this money, and like you're getting $20 million from the school, but the rest of that has to be legitimate NIL. And then also, Schlegs, as you parcel this out, like I think they said it was going to be 3 or 4 sports that maybe got it. So you're thinking football, men's and women's basketball. I don't know what the other one could potentially be. There's a couple of options you may be able to look at, but how do you kind of see that working? What have you read on it and just the clarity of understanding?
Well, one, the hardest thing right now is I've heard this number of anywhere between 14, I've seen 14, 16, 18, 20. Like the hard line is like, what is that actually going to be? That's kind of number one. Number two.
Well, it's going to be 20.5 is the number that will be going to that you'll be allowed. You don't have to, but that's the maximum like salary cap, if you will, that they're allowed to spend.
I know the one big thing for me that I'm questioning is the true NIL deals now
Yeah.
have to be done through, if I'm not mistaken, Deloitte, right?
Yeah.
Is that correct, Bob?
Yeah.
So what is that standard going to be? Yes, no. And I think there was something about if it was to happen like right now, it was like 90% of the deals that have been done would have been approved. What about those 10? What if they've already been signed? How
Yeah.
does that carry over in the future? You know, like there are some things, to your point, guys have been promised money. And now these new things come in. Were they contractual? Do they have to meet those obligations? I will say this. The one thing I do like about what came out of there was the buyout. When
Yeah.
guys transfer, right? If there was like, oh, okay, it's $100,000. They left before, they got 50 when they got there. They left. Goes to Nico's brother who left and went to UCLA. Guess what? They don't get paid the last 50. And UCLA would have to pay $100,000 back to Arkansas for that. And that money would go against UCLA. I like that because here's the deal. The ownership kind of goes back now to universities being able to develop and maintain their own guys and recruit their own guys to stay there. I love that aspect. What does that look for the promising pieces? I think of that. I think it kind of helps Ohio State because they do a great job of retaining and developing their own talent. If they got to fill the gap on somebody, here's the other thing that we didn't hear about in this. What if their 1-year contract is then up? And they decide to transfer and haven't taken any money? When does those contracts start? Like those are a lot of the questions that haven't been happening yet. How does this impact the portal? Are we still going to have 2 portal windows? Are we going to where it's a 1-year contract? None of those things were literally laid out. The one thing was, hey, here's the money. Here's how we're going to disperse it. But there's still a lot of gray area and uncertainty, which is why they brought out the Buckeye Sports Group, which is great. It allows the collectives to be able to use a bigger bandwidth of all of the resources that is the Ohio State University, the alumni, and all of those other people that they can go out and try to raise funding for these NIL deals.
Absolutely. It's a lot of uncertainty, a lot of ambiguity. I know as the week goes out, it's all going into effect on July 1. So we're in mid-June right now. So we're approaching that deadline. We'll see ultimately what happens with that.
I got one more thing. The other thing is one more nugget is that I don't feel we talked about Sankey talking about like the best interest of the game, and his thing is the SEC, obviously. Ohio State, this new sharing of all of this money, and again, how does that money being allocated toward position group? This does not necessarily, I just want everybody to know, this is not in favor of Ohio State. This is in favor of the AYOs out there, because again, you think about it, let's look at Veli back in the day when he was coming out of Glenville, and you're coming into a room where they already have money being allocated. He's not going to be the highest paid linebacker in that room, guys. He's going to be like, okay, of the $750,000 we have in the room, you're getting 50 of it, because that's just where we are. You're just an incoming freshman. Whereas a Purdue could say, Veli, guess what? You're making 500,000 of that because we want you so bad. Yeah. Now that goes into how does Ohio State bridge that gap through an NIL deal? Does it really matter where you start in the room if there's other money that can raise that boat for you as far as financially? But also it's, hey, you have to stay, you get developed, you have opportunities. 1 year at Ohio State is greater than 3 years at Purdue. So you still have that, which I think Ohio State really has to put the hammer down on. You're developed here. You win championships here. Like the brand is what it is. The culture is why you come and stay here, in the development from your coaches. Like that value prop has to be taken to another level in the midst of this new recruiting and this new, allocation of funds per position group.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting because, like you said, and do you sometimes maybe pay a guy less out of that allocation, knowing that you have NIL deals set up for him because maybe
he should be a veteran guy, right?
Yeah, he's more valuable on the NIL space. So hey, we're going to scale you back 100 here, and you're going to be able to get 250 more over there from that. It's like that. That it's going to be. Dude, we were tiptoeing through a landmine field here as they try to solve all of those problems. We got some news from Will Howard making a big impact on Ohio State, and I think someone else is making a big impact on him in Pittsburgh. We'll tell you the details on that coming up next. Welcome back in the Bobby Carpenter Show. Listen, if you're watching it, please like, subscribe, leave all your comments, questions, everything there for us. We love it when you get involved and get engaged. Talk about developing Schlegs. And Will Howard came to Ohio State for a year, said it was a life-changing year for him, develop him. And so they wanted to immortalize that inside the Woody Hayes. And this was a sign that when you get up there, it's gonna read. Right there, it said, if you scroll to the next page, you'll be able to see it. Right when you walk in the Woody, it said, they've changed my life in more ways than I can say. Man, Coach Day and these guys here have completely changed my life. I've been developed here like I've never been developed before. And that, Schlegs, it's kind of what we were just talking about, of saying maybe the short money might be better somewhere else, but probably the long money is better at Ohio State.
Yeah, and I also like that quote, thank God that he made me a Buckeye. And that was kind of from Tress, right? And he reiterated that. I think when you go back, and it was funny, I was on the cruise ship, somebody was telling me about how much we paid our guys. I was like, and he was an Alabama fan. I said, whoa, pump the brakes here, bro. Let's talk about this, We're just sitting there, I'm just trying to get a Tito soda lime, 2 limes, boom. And I was like, listen, man. I was like, development, Will Howard came over, 61% passer. We brought him in, 73, 74% passer, all-time record at Ohio State. 1 year, completely changed his life, won a national championship. He was exactly what they wanted. Kansas State wanted to move on from him. He got developed at Ohio State, won a national championship. Seth McLaughlin, you're a Roll Tide fan, man. And you guys didn't want this guy. Said he couldn't have a snap. Next thing you know, poof, David Copperfield wins a Remington, even after he got injured. Okay? Yeah, Caleb Downs, we really wanted him. Well, no crap. But you know what? Your coach retired. So then we get Caleb Downs and we get Julian Sand. And guess what? Caleb loves it at Ohio State. Not saying Alabama's bad, but he loves being here. He is the poster child of Ohio State defensively right now. Like, it's awesome. So yeah, we paid him, but more importantly, it was all the other guys that stayed, that were developed at Ohio State, that took the majority of the money, bro. Just so you know, just letting you know these things. And he was like, oh, okay. So, and that's the reality of what I like about this and how it can be advantageous. The biggest thing is, how can we make sure that we can ensure getting the guys into the building? Because you got to have the Jimmies and Joes to run the X's and O's, and it starts with the recruiting process. And we just signed that, big time 5-star recruit's going to be a sophomore, I believe, running back. Like, how do you make sure that you get them in the building? How do we allocate those funds, et cetera, et cetera? But you got to have those guys to then be developed, to then stay. And that's where the money goes to. And I like the way Ohio State has done that. And that's how they got to be able to keep navigating these waters. And again, I know Ryan's like this. Hey, when you guys recruit a guy, guess what? Develop them better. The whole thing about the interior D-line, guess what, guys? Challenge accepted, Larry Johnson. Like, develop our interior guys, and he's going to do that. Now, that's why I feel good about where we are, simply because of the coaches that we have. But that's how it is now in 2025.
Absolutely. And then there's also what was going on with Aaron Rodgers and
this is a good one.
And Will Howard out in Pittsburgh. So this is the second portion of this story. And he just signed. Will talked about how he was going to be a sponge. Aaron talked about, hey, I'm going to help him. I'll teach him. I'll do whatever. I don't want to overstep. But this was Will, and he was in Pittsburgh talking about that and having that relationship. And everyone thinks Aaron's this like old surly guy. He's not really. He wants to help people. Just he doesn't want to overstep, and he's not a coach, so I'm not going to pretend to be. But I'll give you some nuggets.
He told me on my 5-step drops, hey, don't get too wide on the top of your drop. Hey, keep your base a little. When he says it, he's like, hey, I don't want to overstep. I'm like, dude, please, by all means, tell me whatever.
Give me all the nuggets. So like you said, all the nuggets is what he's looking for.
So Flacco was asked this question, and again, I think it's a terrible question to ask. Like, hey, you're here to mentor me? Like, dude, I'm a professional. My job is to go win football games.
Yeah. Zach Thomas, right? So, and you have a great relationship with Zach. And here's the deal: Zach's going to help you out. He's going to talk shop. He's going to talk ball. It's your job, right, to say, man, that's some nuggets. That's some wisdom, right? Like, and also, hey, Zach, you see something, give it to me, right? And guess what? Vice versa. I guarantee you, Bob,
You're like, hey, why did you do this or why did you do that? You know what? I don't know. Like I like what you're seeing there. And you have that dialogue. You have those conversations. One, you're on the same team. And two, you want everybody to be better because guess what? Zach goes down, you go in. There shouldn't be a drop-off. You see it at Ohio State. You see it in the NFL. And Aaron's that type of guy too. Like we know him in a different light. Will is a sponge. Like I think the best thing that Will did when he came to Ohio State, what Ohio State I think does very, very well is everything is earned, nothing is given. We talked at length about the Carson Hintzman, Seth McLaughlin like battle there at the beginning. And it's the same thing in the quarterback room. And all those guys that were there that were competing, you can compete and also want to beat out that guy, but also champion that guy. Remember when Devin Brown went in and threw the touchdown pass to Jeremiah Smith in 2 plays over there on the right side of Michigan State? First guy to celebrate with him was Will Howard. It's the NFL, but Aaron knows exactly where he is in his time in the NFL. He has another opportunity. He's a veteran quarterback. They need some help offensively, probably more in the play calling than anything else. But you know what? I got a young guy right here who wants to learn. I'm going to make sure that if I see something, I can go say something.
Let's throw up Will Fleck real quick on his nugget on leadership. Because like you said, it's kind of a crappy question.
Because it's a good question to bait somebody into answering. And no matter how they answer it, it kind of makes the guy that's answering it look bad. If I say I don't want to be a mentor, I look bad. If I say I do want to be a mentor, then I look like an idiot that doesn't care about being good and playing football. So it's one of those questions that no matter what I say, you guys can write what you want to write about it.
And he goes on and talk about it. But it's true. Like if I'm mentoring, then I'm not trying to play. Go be the best and help guys out, and then that'll be fine. We got our headlines coming up next. But first, I want to tell you about our friends over at Backer. Premium new brand with a premium new product. The hats, the coats. I wore the rain jackets and rain in Columbus all weekend, so I pulled that out for some of the games. It's awesome to see. They've got loads of great features. They're awesome stuff. A portion of the products goes back. A portion of the proceeds goes back to Ohio State for those NIL funds that we were talking about. And here's the best part. Even if you miss Father's Day, don't worry about it. Get dad something anyway. It's the gear he's going to want to have. Use promo code all caps Bobby BOBBY at checkout for free expedited shipping. Again, that's Backer, BCKR.com. Headlines coming up next. All right, we got our headlines now. And I want to hit on a little bit more of this Ross Bjork stuff. And I don't think he's shared into overall specifics. But basically, Schleg's, a lot of what he was throwing out there was the fact that the coaches are going to be the ones that individually decide how all this NIL is produced. You will get your allotment. And then if you want, as a coach, you want to spend it all 1 player, 2 player, 3 player, you want to go bigger, whatever you want to do and try to spread it out a little, spread out more, spread it less. Like the coaches are going to own these decisions within the program. Like the athletic department isn't going to have anything to do with how that money is distributed.
Football, men's and women's basketball, and then women's volleyball would be the 4 sports.
Oh, really? Women's volleyball. Okay, there you go.
And here's the difference, right? So all of this money that's being allocated, and again, we have 36 sports. It's who potentially needs more of that bucket, who can self-sustain and raise, right? From an alumni base or men's volleyball is super big, so they don't necessarily need it. I mean, you and I went to a thing for Coach Myers at men's lacrosse, Bob, of trying to raise money for NIL to pay some of their guys. And look what transpired this last year, won the Big Ten, et cetera, went to the playoffs, got beat by Notre Dame, but still had a hell of a year. Other sports are going to have to think outside the box on this. The one piece that's missing, and I really want to talk to them about it because I want to know more. How do we not only we have this money, but how do we spend that money more wisely? And how much of that money, because $2.5 million is to pay for 91 additional scholarships spread amongst its 36 varsity programs. And I look at that and I'm like, okay, if I take, 2.5, I'm gonna do a little math on the Doomajig right here, right? So I got 2.5 million. Yep. Okay, I'm gonna divide that by 91. $27,472. Then why in the same hill is Ohio State football paying $75,000 for a scholarship on a kid that's from out of state? That's my question. So again, I mean, the thing about it, it's 27. Let's just say 25, and we're paying 75. I just say 50 grand. That 50 grand of my money, of which I get to use for whatever I want in this stuff. Where can that go?
Well, and part of that 2.5, they said they're going to expand some scholarships. They're going to add a couple more in for football, maybe take it to 90, 91. And some of the other sports then, especially the female sports, will have to offset that via Title IX. So there's some stuff with that. there's a lot in this. We're going to continue to break it down throughout the week folks, because there's a lot of information there that we need to read to really get into. And he had a lot of stuff that came out that we really didn't dive into all of it, and the different phases when you start talking about the Texas game and scheduling future teams, what that looks like, how those contracts work. And he did say Ohio State carries the day at noon, and they need to have more flexibility when scheduling those game times. So that is music to Buckeye fans' ears. We have that with our headlines, and we've got our tailgate talk coming up next. But first, I'm going to tell you about our friends over at Lake Spur Marketing. They're a full-service ad agency that's built on trust, strategy, and performance. Lake Spur Marketing, their team shields you from the outside noise, the cold callers, all the nonsense you don't want to deal with. They help you work on your business so you can work in the business and help get it done and improve it. They don't chase clicks. They help build partnerships. Lake Spur Marketing. The proof is in the partners. We got our tailgate talk coming up next. All right, Schlegs, our buddy Dustin Fox got married over the weekend.
Yes.
Unfortunately, I couldn't get up there. My wife was out of town. She's in Maryland with my daughter. We had another lacrosse tournament here with Kellen. I couldn't get up there, but I was happy. Fox is a good friend of ours, former teammate. Happy to see him finally get married. Captain Ohio State.
Yeah, I love the fact it was funny. I ad reads while he was getting married. It was just kind of comical, especially one for the testosterone replacement. Probably going through their vows at that time.
Friends over to Affinity, Schlegs.
Yeah, I love it. It's amazing. But yeah, I mean, I texted him Happy Father's Day, just thinking about you guys over the wedding. Obviously, he hit us back, but great dude. Excited for him. Seen on the Buckeye Cruise in a really good spot right now. Does a great job covering games. So super fired up for him.
Yeah, just very happy, very excited for Dustin and him and Sarah, and hopefully a great wedding. I'm excited for those two. All right, Schlegs, we are going to take one more quick break, and we'll hit your parting thoughts next. Parting thoughts for the first time here in a while, back and ready to rock, Mr. Anthony Schlegel.
Yeah, parting thoughts. I mean, we just had Father's Day weekend, and I think, having lost my mom, it also doesn't skip the fact that we shouldn't just call our dads or our moms on Mother's Day or Father's Day. Make sure that you go out and you call them and you talk to them. I just think it's something that we could all probably do a little bit better. I myself being one of those, but just encourage everybody. Make sure you pick up the phone, call your loved ones, say what's up.
Absolutely. You need to give Raj that phone call and get some of that wisdom rattling around in his brain.
Jock Doc, baby.
The Jock Doc. The best part is, Schlegs, and I didn't say this earlier, I forgot to. Patrick Creighton, because I played with one of Schlegs' former teammates in Dallas, high school teammates. And PC used to always say that Schlegs' dad used to just abuse him in the weight room. And he's like, we all felt so bad for him. He just kept putting more and more weight on and more for the squats and the bench, and just kept yelling at him and would just relentlessly ride him. But that's because he loved you, Schlegs, and he wanted you to be the very best that you could ultimately be. But that's it for this edition of the Bobby Carpenter Show, this Monday edition. Stay tuned and locked in here for Tuesday. Coming up, we'll most likely have Bill Bender and have a great show for you.